YouTube is self-destructing. There was a period early on where they had a bunch of specific personalities that did really well on YouTube they promoted. Well, those people don't get nearly as much traffic and views anymore for a variety of reasons. Vice is one of these channels. Let me explain something to you about YouTube. In the early days, 10 years ago or so, there was very little digital content. So those of us who were early cord cutters who wanted to watch a movie or a documentary or something, we went to YouTube. There wasn't really a Hulu or a Netflix for the most part. Actually, I don't think there really was. People wanted to watch movies, they'd rent them, they'd watch them on TV. So when you look at what Vice was doing with their early documentaries, they got millions, tens of millions of views, because what else was there? This was entertaining long-form content. It wasn't TV quality necessarily, but it was still a good show. A bunch of other YouTubers did good as well. They were making entertaining bits, and then as time went on, the market expanded, and more professional people started to use the platform. It then began to corporatize. You now see YouTube promoting CNN, Fox News, MSNBC, Jimmy Fallon, Seth Meyers, etc., because now they're like, oh, we finally got the big corporate players on our platform. We don't need these people anymore. So here's what happens. We have this story from BuzzFeed about VidCon's 10-year anniversary. Influencers, fans, and brands all seem ready to leave YouTube behind. And it's really simple. YouTube doesn't care about us anymore. So here's what I'm going to say. And like I do this in a lot of videos. Timcast.com/donate if you want to support my work. There's a bunch of ways to do it. But I always ask you guys to share my videos for one reason. YouTube doesn't anymore. They recommend my content for sure. Don't get me wrong. But suggestions. After you watch a video, what do you get? Mainstream media. Be it late night talk show hosts, John Oliver, people like. These people are out of touch, they're boring, and they're not YouTube personalities that interact with you. I will say this too, what I really love about the latest press around the White House Summit is that I used to be like Tim Pool, award-winning journalist, former director of innovation for an ABC Univision joint venture, and the founding member of Vice News, who was essentially the key player in launching it. All of those accolades are gone for YouTube personality. I appreciate it. Don't care though. Look, I'm proud to be on YouTube. I went here purposefully. I left corporate media, got on YouTube, and what does YouTube do? They wash their hands of us once they don't need us anymore. So we rely on you for the shares. But check this out. I was supposed to go to VidCon, and I am greatly appreciative of Google YouTube setting me up with actually VIP access to a bunch of their parties and events. Here's the problem. I reached out to VidCon several years ago. And this was like before I started doing, big YouTube stuff. I was still very prominent in the live streaming space. One of the most prominent live streaming news figures, if not the, I think it's fair to say that I was the news live streaming personality. Won awards for it, featured in magazines for it, etc. And they told me they wouldn't have me. And it's really interesting why. Well, I found out again, a couple years later, that They claimed they weren't having a news panel. They did. Who did they bring? Left-wing activists, claiming they were journalists. And it was just complete nonsense. And that's what VidCon is. It's a political conference for the most part. Sure, the kids go there and buy their candy bars and play video games, but YouTube and VidCon just prop up specific creators that no one cares about anymore. This is YouTube self-destructing. Check this out. BuzzFeed writes, the YouTubers people care about can't be invited because they're all out of control, and the safer creators they did invite are all traumatized. That's an opinion and not correct. Daniel Keene, the massive influencer vlogger behind the 5 million subscriber strong YouTube gossip channel Drama Alert, spent the week around VidCon derisively tweeting about how irrelevant the conference is now. He said, when VidCon sends its YouTubers, they're not sending their best. They're sending YouTubers that have lots of dead channels. They're bringing in fidget spinners. They're bringing in hoverboards. They're randoms, Keem tweeted. Clearly a reference to Donald Trump. Quite humorous. I laughed. But it's true. When I was there a couple of years ago, I decided not to go back. I was thinking about going this year, but it's just not worth it. Even though I had VIP access and was going to be allowed to do these parties, nobody shows up anymore. They're promoting channels that are dead, channels that don't make videos, channels that get no views. And they're claiming that, BuzzFeed claims the other people who are invited are traumatized. That's not true at all. Look at what he says. These VidCon pics all over Twitter have the same people that were cool in 2013. and 100% irrelevant now. He went on to tweet, "It's the same people every year. VidCon does not rep the actual stars of the platform, and I tell you this now. Whether you follow Keemstar or not, he knows better than anyone." He does. It's literally his job. He talks about YouTube drama and other pop culture drama. It's a massive channel with 5 million subscribers. It gets like 1 million views per day. It's ridiculous. It's huge. He knows. And here he is telling you straight up, this conference doesn't represent anybody interesting anymore. Look at the YouTube rewind they do every year. It just gets worse and worse. They bring in Will Smith. Come on, man. What about the massively successful YouTubers who are growing up on the platform and now not being represented anymore? This is another big problem of YouTube. 10 years ago, people watched this stuff. Guess what? They're in their late 20s, early 30s now, and they're worried about politics, political issues, cultural issues, and you are not dealing with this anymore. You're bringing in kids. I get it. It's a big market for kids. But VidCon has 3 floors, an industry floor. You need to expand, man. You need to talk about stuff we care about. The things that we all love that are under attack every day by fringe wacko identitarians on the left that want to destroy our games and movies with nonsense. And I'm not being hyperbolic and talking about how it's a grand conspiracy. I'm literally saying there are a couple instances where specific things have happened. I also think it's fair to point out, as a disclaimer, there are a lot of people who overhype and act like the woke leftism is worse than it really is. I think it's a big issue. Talk about it a lot. Not every instance of a woke movie is the worst thing in the world, and a lot of people will push nonsense for clicks. But the reality is, there is a culture war happening there, and VidCon is trying to avoid any controversy, but they also just do a bad job because they do represent one side. They bring in people like Anita Sarkeesian, not trying to be disrespectful, just pointing out she is on one side of the issue. They give her a platform. They bring on left-wing activists. What about the rest of us? What about the regular people who are big fans of Vice who aren't anymore because they went nuts? You look at the viewership. Why is it that Vice can't get the same amount of viewership they used to? They do get periodically. Well, it's partly because they've gone woke. And now people, it's a divide. Let's read a little bit more. They say, VidCon's relationship with YouTube's bigger, more unruly stars is complicated, to say the least. In 2017, Logan Paul hid $3,000 around VidCon and turned the convention center into an almost riot as fans scrambled to find the cash. They talk about TanaCon. They say the big YouTubers who did attend VidCon this year seemed more interested in probing the darkness of YouTube fame than celebrating a decade of it. Elle Mills, a YouTuber who had to take a break from the platform last year due to burnout after crossing 1 million subscribers, was especially candid about the pressures of online fame. Growing up, I never had mental health problems, but last year on tour, I had my first panic attack. I couldn't make another video without addressing it. I couldn't fake a smile. On stage next to her was Dan Howell, a veteran YouTuber who also took a year-long hiatus before he recently returned with a video where he came out as gay. Howell spoke about how trapped he felt as a YouTube creator, churning out videos and unable to properly deal with his mental health. When you're constantly being a YouTuber, you're expected to keep doing things, he said. It's like I couldn't grow or change behind the scenes. And this is also another, side note outside of the YouTube controversy. People often wonder why rock stars, so many, have died of overdose. Why do they do drugs? I don't think people realize being well known, being famous, being notable, it's not all sunshine and rainbows, right? I literally have hit pieces coming out against me, lying about me. I get death threats. I have to have home security. It's not necessarily fun. Not only that, but going outside, sometimes random people look, I appreciate it when people like, the stuff that I do. It's kind of weird. Look, let me say this. I'm just sitting in a room talking to a little, a piece of glass. I don't see anybody, And on the other side of these videos, there's hundreds of thousands of people, and it has a huge impact because a lot of these people hate my guts. Here's the thing, though, man. I'm not going to blame YouTube because of burnout. If you don't have what it takes to scale Mount Everest, don't try. Train yourself. Get to that point. I have grown and I've experienced this stuff, and you know what? I'm carved out of wood, man. I get it. I've been triggered. I've been trolled sometimes. I've gotten angry. But for the most part, it rolls off my back, and I move on. There's no one forcing you to do this. Anyway, I don't want to get into too much about the YouTube burnout stuff. The point I'm trying to make is to highlight what Keemstar said. And I'll pull up his Twitter here specifically. Keem's right. YouTube doesn't care about us. They're not sharing us anymore. They're censoring certain political commentary. They're propping up the mainstream media. And that also contributes to the burnout. When people see their viewership go down, they panic. What are they doing wrong? What can they do better? Their life is on the line. Their career is on the line. Some people aren't making a lot of money on YouTube. They're making just enough. And when their viewership goes down, now they're not going to pay their rent. How do you solve the problem when you don't know what the problem is? YouTube deranked my channel and many others. Dave Rubin, for instance. We placed a bet on these platforms. You know what? I'll put it this way. I'm critical of YouTube. YouTube has no obligation to promote me. But it is fair to point out YouTube is going full corporate. It is what it is. We've seen the numbers, we've seen the metrics, and then we can look at events like VidCon and see that they're either catering to the woke left or they're just propping up dead channels, people that are totally irrelevant today. Plain and simple. I say that too much, don't I? So anyway, look, I wanted to rant about YouTube. There's a lot more to rant about, but I don't think too many people will care about this video. It is what it is. Thanks for hanging out. Stick around. I for some reason thought my last segment was the last segment, but whatever. I will see you in the next video tomorrow at 10 a.m. and 6:30 for the podcast. Thanks for hanging out. I'll see you next time.